I think I was wrong on this one. Since its release nearly a month ago, I've been slowly making my way through Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword HD on Switch, and I've got some things to say. So sit back, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new here, and I'm going to go ahead and share my thoughts. Let's get to it. So before I start, I'll just let you all know that there will be some spoilers ahead, so I warned you. Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword on Wii was honestly my least favorite Zelda game, so spending the money to buy the HD version on Switch was not necessarily something I was thrilled to be doing. Seeing that in the lead up to its release, Nintendo was sharing quality of life improvements that were indeed addressing some of my concerns, this led to me being less and less hesitant about buying it. What I remember about the Wii version is the difficulty I had completing the game. After about the first half, I recall having to force myself to complete it. I just kept thinking it was going to get better, and my memory is that the payoff just wasn't there. What I chalked it up to at the time was unrealized expectations. Most memorably with Twilight Princess releasing as a launch title on the Wii, I was frankly blown away with the motion controls. Just something about pointing the Wiimote at the screen to shoot your arrows or claw shots has stuck with me over the years. I was expecting the Wii Motion Plus upgrade to really catapult Skyward Sword into a great game, especially with the advertised one-to-one sword swinging, and I waited, and waited, for that to happen, and it just never came. I think I can boil it down to two things. The beginning of Skyward Sword is a very sweet, although a bit heavy on the insinuation, pre-existing relationship between Link and Zelda. This was a first for the series, and once Zelda gets taken by the storm, nothing more is really fleshed out. You see her intermittently a few more times throughout the 30 plus hours of playtime, but the initial build of the friendship did not really develop as was insinuated. Like, I get it. But the relationship regression was something I was expecting and looking forward to, after seeing how close the two of them were in the opening parts of the game. But it just didn't happen. Secondly, it goes back to Twilight Princess and the bow. You get the bow relatively early, and the long-range sniping just had me really engaged from the get-go. But in Skyward Sword, the bow was the last weapon you obtain in the game, and by the time I got it, I was already detached and didn't care. I know this is supposed to be about the HD version, but I wanted to give some insights into my feelings going into Skyward Sword HD, so there was some context for what I am about to share next. In Skyward Sword HD, my initial impressions of the game were actually quite positive, and significantly higher than I expected. I don't know if the quality of life improvements tied into it, because I spent the first half of the game playing using the motion controls. But that's the beauty of it, right? If I don't notice the changes and I'm enjoying myself, that's all that matters, right? What also might have worked in Skyward Sword HD's favor after 10 years passing since Skyward Sword on Wii, I forgot a significant portion of how the story played out, which was effectively the entire second half of the game. So half of the game seemed new. The second half is actually what I'll touch upon now. Exploring each of the three surface areas is fun. They all really feel different from one another, and the way the game has you come back to each of them is a bit of a letdown, but expanding each area is done in a pretty good way, especially the sand ship. That spot was a lot of fun. The main irksome part is the fetch quest that starts in the last third of the game. Like, bringing back a task that was, albeit different, but very similar to the Triforce Shard fetch quest in Wind Waker. Collecting the pieces of the final song was a pain in the ass. I totally forgot this was a part of the game, because it's arguably forgettable. But a logical conclusion point that leads to the final battle took place just before you start this quest. Then it was like, this game needs an extra 3 to 5 hours of playtime, so let's add this unnecessary segment to extend things. I have no problem playing a game that has a long playtime, but The Legend of Zelda has effectively trained me that once I've obtained all the items, the final boss battle is imminent. But in this case, nope, here's some forced content to delay the final boss encounter. All in all, after loving Breath of the Wild, I was a bit surprised that I enjoyed Skyward Sword HD so much, which it should have felt like taking a step back. But it just might be the Zelda formula that I love, and it works very well here. I was very surprised that I changed my tune on the game, but overall compared to the Wii version, I don't know if Skyward Sword HD is any better. Sure, the quality of life improvements were made and load times are faster, but if you have an upscaling Wii U that you can play Skyward Sword on, the games do play very similarly. But if you want to play it in handheld mode, you have no choice but to pick it up on the Switch. Handheld mode does start to feel natural. Moving the camera did take some getting used to, as you need to hold the left bumper and rotate the right joystick. But otherwise, the swordplay is easier in handheld mode. Also, no need for that amiibo functionality. The statues are everywhere, and going up to the sky isn't something you always need to do. Maybe if you needed to head back to Skyloft for a potion, but otherwise, you aren't too far from a statue that'll do the same thing. Oh yeah, the thing's $30 Canadian. It is beautiful, but don't get me wrong. It would be something I would buy to add to my collection, but not for its in-game functionality. All this is to say, revisiting Skyward Sword HD after all these years since playing Skyward Sword on Wii, it's actually made me a believer. Even though it's the same game and looks pretty much the same if you play it on the Wii U, the fact that I was able to turn around my attitude towards this game and enjoy my 30 plus hours through it, I do recommend that you pick up Skyward Sword HD on Switch. Have you played The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword HD on Switch? Would you also recommend this game? Let me know in the comments below and I'll see you in my next video.